Howdy, welcome to BanjoBenClark.com. I'm Banjo Ben, and today we're learning more about basic guitar rhythm, specifically learning to use those basic walks that take us from chord to chord. So it's one thing to learn how to play the chords of a song. It's another thing to begin to make that really interesting to listen to and also fun to play. And that's what we're going to do today. So we're going to start with a little bit of theory based around a basic understanding of the G major scale. And then we're going to learn how to use those G major scale notes to create interesting and fun walks between the chords. And after we get that under our fingers, we're going to apply that to a couple of very popular chord progressions so that not only do you learn how to do it, you know how to take it out there in the real world and begin applying it to the songs that you play. If you're watching here already on the site as a Gold Pick member, you have everything you need right here on this page. If you're watching somewhere else, I'd love to have you on board. BanjoBenClark.com. Let's get started. We've got a big fun lesson for you today, and we're only going to concentrate on the key of G, or out of the G major position today. We'll cover more later on, but remember that the key of G is very, very popular in bluegrass, especially with the use of a capo. So if we play in the keys of A or B flat or B or even getting up to C, you can take your capo, move that up the frets, and apply the same things that we learned today to those different keys. Capos are good things, right? So the first thing I want to do is cover a little bit of theory, but don't worry, don't get scared by that word, because I only teach the theory that you're actually going to use. I don't have room in my brain for useless information. I don't consider that you do either. So we are going to learn a little theory, but then we're going to immediately put it to work. Now, when we talk about the key of G, let's talk about some basic common chords that we're going to find in the key of G. And I would say that there are 5 chords that you're going to find very, very often. And then, of course, others, but there's 5 that we're going to look at today. Of course, the first one's just going to be a regular old G chord. Now I'm going to play that big old full 4-finger bluegrass G chord. Of course, there are many different ways to play a G chord, but the one that I'm going to play is 3rd fret on the bottom string, 2nd fret on the 5th string, then open, open, then I'm going to play the 3rd frets on the first 2 strings. Now, let me tell you a little secret. Very often when playing rhythm, you're going to see it happen today, and you can begin to do it. I'm going to lift my index finger and not use it. I'm not going to play that 5th string. And what am I going to do instead? Well, I'm not going to leave it open. That would sound horrible. I'm going to mute it with the very bottom or with the fatty part of my middle finger so that actually when you strum through, you don't hear the A string at all. Okay, the next chord that we're going to use very commonly is, of course, our C chord, then our D chord, our E minor chord, and our A minor chord. Okay, so those are some very common chords that we'll find in the key of G. We won't find them all in every song that we're playing out of the G position, but we'll find them very often, enough so that we're going to practice walking back and forth to them using these scale walks. Now, where are we getting these notes that I'm choosing to use when I'm going back and forth between these chords? For instance, how did I know to grab those notes? Well, all of those notes fall within a G major scale. Again, don't freak out because we use the word scale. I'm just going to introduce it to you, and then you can dive in further with the G major scale study that I have here on the site. But let's take a look at a basic, well, it is the G major scale, but we're only going to look at one octave. We're going to play it with open strings. That's what we see there in measure 5. It sounds like this. We're actually starting that G major scale on that low E note. We're not starting it on a G note. You may have noticed that. And that's because the G major scale not only starts on G, it also goes lower. So we're going to be pulling from some of those notes, so I want to go ahead and include them as we're learning it. But check out the pattern that we have going on with the G major scale. It's really easy to memorize because if you start with that lowest open string, then play the 2nd and 3rd frets, and then just switch to the next string and do the very same thing. Open, 2nd, 3rd frets. Then on the next one, we're just going to change one thing. Open, 2nd, and 4th frets, and then open. In fact, if you just think about it, open 2, 3, open 2, 3, open 2, 4, open. I bet you could pause this video right now and repeat what I just said to you, which means that you could pick up your guitar right now. It might take you a little while, but you could figure out the G major scale. Now, why is it important to know that? Because that contains a whole bunch of notes that are available to us to use to connect these chords. So you get that? Like, we actually have a scale that we can use in our playing. That's pretty cool. So all of those little chord runs and chord walks that you heard me play between the chords, I'm just pulling from the notes of this scale. So it's important to have that in our mind, to know where it's at on the fretboard, and it's very easy to learn, as I mentioned. Now, all we have to do is consider another part of the theory, and that's the timing. But that's where it gets really fun. But what I want you to do before you move on to the next video segment is be able to play that 1 octave G major scale by memory. And guess what? Be able to play it back down too. And as long as you can do that, and you can play through the basic chords that we talked about, G, C, D, E minor, and A minor, you're ready to move on to the next part, which is when we start applying those scale notes to connect these chords together. Let's check it out.